Hello and welcome to the Campus Health Show with Dr. Nadine Plummer, also known as Dr. D, and me, Eldon Atkin. So today we're here for our part 2 of obesity and weight loss. I'm excited.
This is actually our first two-part
I know, it's
series.
amazing, yeah.
I just wanted to introduce myself. You just started it off.
Yep.
My name is Dr. Nadine Plummer, but my friends call me Dr. D, and since you're my friend, and all of you out there, we're friends, you can call me Dr. D. I work as a naturopathic doctor in the Campus Health Center. The Campus Health Center is located in the Campus Recreation and Wellness Center.
Yep.
Campus Recreation and Wellness Center is located on campus.
And on campus is located in Oshawa.
So the Campus Recreation and Wellness Center is where the new gym is.
Yep.
And in the Campus Health Center, there are a number of health practitioners. There are mental health nurses. There's a registered massage therapist. There are physiotherapists. There's chiropractors. There are nurses, MDs, and one ND, which at the moment is me.
Is you. It's awesome. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
That very well done intro. Now,
Thanks, Eldon.
you're welcome. Our very first question of the day.
Yes.
And viewers at home, if you go back
Watch
and
out,
look,
slamming
it's
things.
always our first question, funny enough. What are we talking about today?
So what are we talking about today?
Yes.
Today we're talking about obesity and weight loss.
Okay.
We actually talked a little bit about obesity and weight loss, well, a lot for last week's show, and I wanted us to continue the topic and kind of finish it off today.
Awesome. So, second question, always asked. It's almost like it's question 2. Now, we're talking about this. Now, why is it important? Like last week we talked about why it's important. Let's refresh the viewers, hopefully.
So I want to split this into a two-part series because last week we talked a little more about the chemistry and the physiology and the science in obesity, and this week we will talk about that a little more, but I want us to talk a little more about strategies, about diet plans, about weight loss tips. It's important right now because as we move into Christmas, it's a time of stress for a lot of people.
Yes, it is.
You have final exams, you might have final assignments. People tend to sometimes stress eat or emotional eat.
Oh, yeah.
And last week I did say something like knowledge is power, but this week I want to add to that.
Okay.
Knowledge is power, but it's only powerful if you implement it.
Awesome.
So I want to give everyone some strategies that I think they could implement.
Solid.
And the other thing is, as we move into Christmas, you might be doing some Christmas cheering and Christmas cheering.
Yeah.
And, you're going to be in situations where you might be eating a little more than normal.
That's the plan.
So hopefully at the very end of the show, when we get to the top 10 list, you'll have to stay tuned for the whole thing to find out what the top 10 list is.
Yep.
But I'm going to tell you a little bit about it right now.
Okay.
Then some of the tips that we have in top 10 list you can use as you embark on your Christmas journey and Christmas eating spree.
It's a journey. It's always a journey.
Yes, everything's a journey.
I understand that completely. That's awesome. So we have a lot to talk about today.
Yes.
Again, 2 parts because it's such a big topic, I think.
Yeah.
Now, we talk about obesity. What is the exact clinical term for it, or definition you could call it?
So it's a condition that's characterized by high body fat.
Okay.
So the way that's diagnosed or the way that's defined is it's according to body mass index. So BMI, it calculates the amount of body fat, and it actually calculates it by comparing your height to your weight.
Okay.
It's a general estimate. The higher the BMI, the more body fat a person has. A BMI over 30 is considered, a person with a BMI over 30 is considered obese.
Okay.
But it can also be measured by waist circumference, and it can also be measured by hip to waist ratio.
Okay. That's awesome. So we have our little, we know why, I guess you could call it.
How?
Yeah, how.
The diagnosis.
Yeah, there we go.
let's
There
say.
we go. So, BMI, you mentioned over 30 is considered obese, and now the waist numbers, that kind of changes. But I'm going to assume it changes with gender, correct?
It does.
Okay.
It can change with gender and also change with ethnic background, ethnicity. So for waist circumference, actually there are a few things that are important. When you're measuring waist circumference, you have to measure it, this criteria is based on measuring it in a specific way.
Okay.
So this is how you would measure it based on the Heart and Stroke Foundation's directions. First of all, you find your hip bone, and you'd find it at the side.
At the side.
And that's where you'll be measuring. It's about approximately,
like
the bone, you can find it at the front and then move over to the side, and it's a little bit higher at the side because it actually.
Yep.
And and another way of approximating where it is, it's about 2 inches underneath the umbilicus, which is the belly button.
The belly button or the navel.
You could say, around 2 inches under there. Then you take your measuring ribbon, and you would, at the bottom of the ribbon goes to the top of the hip bone, and then you put it on, make sure that's parallel to the floor, and your ribbon's not like, because then you'd have a wrong measurement.
Sure.
Now, this is the interesting part. Now you take 2 breaths in. Take a breath in, take a breath out. Take a breath in again. On the second exhalation, squeeze. And that's when you take the measurement. Except when you're squeezing, you're not squeezing so tight that it actually digs into the skin.
Okay.
So
you shouldn't make that noise when you do it.
Yeah. You'd be like, comfortable, but a little bit tight.
Yeah.
So now that you know how to take the measurement, here are the measurements.
Okay.
Now, as I said, there is a difference with men and women. So if your background is European, Sub-Saharan African, Eastern Mediterranean, or Middle Eastern Arab, then for men, a waist circumference of 94 is considered 94 centimeters, central obesity.
That's inches. That's
80 centimeters for a woman is considered central obesity. But if you are background South Asian, Chinese, Japanese, South American, Central American, then for men it's 90 centimeters, and for women it's still 80 centimeters.
Okay, so that's actually really cool. I didn't know that tied in.
A little bit different.
Yeah, that is something else that your background really influences. I could see that. I could see why. Usually Europeans are known for being, I guess, like bigger stature-wise. Sort of. Maybe. I think so.
According to that's from Diabetes Canada, actually.
Okay. Well, thank you, Diabetes Canada, of course. But our next question is.
Yes.
Now, you prepared?
I think so.
Maybe. Hopefully.
We'll see.
Okay. Why?
Go!
Oh my God! You caught me. I was in the middle of it.
Okay.
Why does obesity happen? Like physical reasons, realistically.
Physical reasons. So we talked about some of the physical reasons last week. As a matter of fact, I think last week that was my first list. I was
awesome. We had so many lists last week. It was amazing.
I'm going to reiterate some of the basic physical reasons now.
Okay.
Number 1, energy intake in excess of energy expenditure. Basically, you're taking in more than you're using up.
Okay.
Choosing calorie-dense foods, nutrient-poor food choices, low physical activity, sedentariness.
What's that?
Sedentary, like you're really not moving.
You're becoming a rock?
Not, you wouldn't quite be a rock, but not moving a lot.
Okay.
Medication. So I mentioned last week that obesity could be a side effect for some medications, and I had mentioned antipsychotics, and it's not, weight gain is not necessarily a side effect of all antipsychotics. It is of some. We talked about sleep last week, little or excess sleep, and this is interesting. I was reading about a meta-analysis that looked at the link between a short sleep duration and obesity. And they found that 5 to 13% of the total proportion of obesity in children and 3 to 5% in adults could be attributed to short sleep.
Okay.
And that is from a journal called Sleep.
I love it.
In May 2008.
Awesome.
Also, what's interesting about shorter sleep is when you're tired, you tend to really reach for sugary foods.
Definitely.
And I read about another interesting study at the University of Colorado where they had, it was a week-long study. And all the participants only got 5 hours of sleep per night, and they all gained weight in 1 week. And what their conclusion was, less sleep leads to eating more.
Yeah, definitely.
And eating more in that week led to weight gain.
Exactly.
And I believe in that study, the food was always available. So only,
yeah, that's definitely
only
an issue,
5
yeah.
hours of sleep, and they ate more and they gained weight.
Definitely. So, like, realistically, with less sleep, it gives you more time to do things.
It gives you more time to eat, but also when you're tired, you tend to grab
wrong
things
kind of
that
foods,
are
yeah.
sugary, and you know that that's going to bring your energy level up, and it might make you feel less tired.
So, if you keep eating the sugary foods, and sugary foods lead to a sort of almost
weight gain.
Weight gain.
And we talked a little bit about sugar addiction,
There
which
we
we
go.
will touch on
trying to
a
tie
little
that
later in the show. Yeah.
Awesome. So, our next
Alden,
question.
you're listening.
I know. I always
You're
listen.
learning.
Yeah. Now, psychological and emotional factors are probably involved, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
There can be both psychological and emotional factors involved in obesity. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that there always is.
Okay.
But some studies have found a correlation between psychological, emotional factors and obesity, and it's more events or like emotional factors, traumas, etc., that occurred in childhood that kind of take a toll later on as adults. So sometimes abuse in childhood can lead to obesity in adulthood.
Definitely.
In an article in the August 2010 Journal of Women's Health, they looked at the link between childhood sexual abuse and obesity. They looked at the link between obesity and a few things, but childhood sexual abuse was one of those things, and they found a stronger link between obesity and intrafamilial childhood sexual abuse.
Okay.
And there are other types of abuse. There's physical abuse, there's verbal abuse.
Definitely.
Not that our whole show is on abuse, but
Hopefully
there
not.
has been, they have found a link between emotional and physical abuse in childhood and obesity in adulthood. So another study where the participants ranged in age from 19 to 92.
That's a big age group.
Yeah, so this is like adulthood, well into
that's
nearly
frightening, yeah.
100 years old. That'd be amazing. I think
all
maybe
adults here,
to live till you're 92. We are all adults. So in this study, we could have been participants in this study. It was a study found in the International Journal of Obesity and Related Metabolic Disorders. Over 13,000 people were involved, and they were members of the California Health Maintenance Organization, and it was found that 66% of them reported one or more type of abuse. So over half, nearly 2/3 of the 13,000 people had experienced childhood abuse. And physical abuse and verbal abuse were more strongly associated with body weight and obesity. So the conclusion of the study was abuse in childhood is associated with adult obesity.
Wow. That is unfortunate to hear.
It is, yes.
Yeah. But moving on from our sad topic.
Okay.
We're going back to, so we looked at the reasons why. Now, obesity affects our, like, we know how we become obese. What does it do to us, though?
In our bodies.
Yeah.
So when I was very casually reading a journal called the Clinical Biochemical Review this weekend, just picked it up.
It's in the bathroom.
It was there.
It's a light read. Yeah.
It's on the tea table.
Yeah.
I came across an article called The Clinical Biochemistry of Obesity.
Okay.
And I'm always interested in biochemistry and like.
Oh, light. Yeah, me too. It's a Sunday read. Yeah.
So, this article mentioned the toxic metabolic effects of free fatty acids. Ugh, see, I'm eating my hair, and something called.
Are you hungry?
Well, actually, speaking of hunger, we're going to be eating at the end of today's show. You have to wait to find out what we're eating.
It's not dark chocolate.
It's not dark chocolate, but maybe next week.
It will be.
So it mentioned the toxic metabolic effects of free fatty acids and something called adipokines.
Okay.
Adipokines are little biochemical messengers that adipose tissue or fat produces. So
definitely.
I think at one point it was kind of believed that fat kind of just sat and that didn't have,
Yeah.
didn't really affect the body that much, didn't send off anything into the body. But now we know that fat can actually act as an endocrine organ as it releases adipokines. Anything like when you're talking about endocrine organs, you're talking about hormones and the effects of those hormones.
Hormones
like
play a big role,
biochemically in the body.
Okay.
So the adipokines from fat tissue are like little messengers that affect other tissue.
Okay.
So it's interesting. I just wanted to talk about some of these little messengers, let's call them. So TNF alpha is produced by adipose tissue, and that might play a role in insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
TNF alpha can stimulate interleukin 6, which in turn stimulates the production of fibrinogen. Fibrinogen is a protein that is involved in the clotting process.
Okay.
That's interesting because there's a relationship between obesity and blood clotting.
Definitely, and this shows why.
That could be
it's
a
awesome.
factor.
It's good to know that, actually.
Interleukin 6 can also cause an increase in inflammation, which means that when people are obese, most likely, or there's a correlation with being in a more inflammatory state. Another adipokine is called resistin. It's also known as an adipose tissue specific secretory factor, which has been shown to cause high levels of LDL. LDL is what is called the bad cholesterol. It also causes an increase in pro-inflammatory cytokines, including but not limited to, as we said, interleukin 6, interleukin 12, interleukin 1, tumor necrosis factor, TNF alpha that we just talked about. And they found when IL, which is interleukin 1, and TNF, tumor necrosis factor, was actually administered to humans in studies, it produced fever, inflammation, and tissue destruction.
Well, that's no good.
So, no.
No, it's no good at all.
So when you keep this biochemistry in mind, then it might make sense when you see that there is an increase in inflammation, a possible increased risk for blood clots, as well as increased LDL, and possible association with insulin resistance in type 2 diabetes. Those things are correlated or associated with obesity. So some of this biochemistry might explain those correlations.
It's just not a good place to be, is it? It's a lot going
Stuff
wrong.
happens.
Yeah, stuff happens.
Stuff is happening.
Bad stuff happens.
In your body.
Yeah, the destruction of tissue. No, thank you.
Well, that's not good.
I don't think so at all, no.
That's what they found is possible. It's not always what happens.
Okay, I guess. Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Next question.
Yes.
All right, go.
Now,
yes.
we talk about hormones.
This is important for you.
It is.
As a guy.
I think so, personally, yes. So, hormones kind of tie into this. I heard that testosterone can be affected or is affected by this. How is this true at all, and how so?
Yeah. Yes, it's true. So greater adipose tissue equals greater production of a couple of enzymes and a couple of hormones, greater production of aromatase, leptin, and PAI1. But I really want to look at the first one that I just mentioned, aromatase, which is an enzyme. And that's an enzyme that's found in the conversion of, it's like a catalyst enzyme in the conversion of testosterone to estradiol. So in men with increasing obesity, there's increased aromatase activity. What does that mean? It means that there's more of this enzyme, which irreversibly converts testosterone to estradiol. So that results in decreased testosterone and increased estrogen levels.
It's a bad place to be.
In men who have with greater adipose tissue. Also, what happens when your testosterone levels are low? So decreased testosterone levels release estrogen receptor beta. It's normally suppressed. And that estrogen receptor beta expression results in the downregulation of the GLUT4 transporter. And we talked about GLUT4 transporters on the cell membrane when we were talking about the effects of the role of glucose and insulin.
Yep.
So without the GLUT4 transporter on the cell membrane, then insulin wouldn't function properly. Then
Exactly.
glucose can't go into the cell. Then you have greater glucose in the blood.
Which doesn't help anybody.
But you also have insulin just there, like, hey, I want to do my job, except I can't. So that can lead to insulin resistance. So so that is like a process, but it started with decreased testosterone. It ends with insulin resistance. Also, as adipose tissue goes up, so can resistance to insulin, as we just said,
Which
and
is a bad
also
place to be.
resistance to leptin.
Okay.
So I don't know if you remember,
I don't.
or if you guys remember, but we talked about leptin, I think, last show.
Probably.
Maybe in emotional eating.
We might have, yeah.
you should you should go and watch both of those shows, emotional eating and last week's show, which was part 1.
Definitely.
But just to recap, leptin is a hormone that is in charge of a sense of satisfaction from like decreased hunger. And ghrelin, we had said, was the appetite hormone. So leptin kind of turns off your hunger, and ghrelin turns on your hunger. So when adipose tissue goes up, then resistance to leptin goes
down.
No,
up.
resistance to leptin goes up.
Which means your hunger goes up.
Which means that you can't tell that you don't feel you don't feel satisfied.
Okay, that's a bad place to be also.
Right. So leptin kind of cuts off your hunger.
Definitely, yeah.
Except if you're not getting that signal, like, hey, I'm not hungry anymore, then you would eat more. And it's interesting. Anyway, we'll leave it there.
Okay.
But some of this information that I just talked about has been from the Journal of Medical Hypothesis in an article entitled Obesity in Men.
Okay.
The hypogonadal estrogen receptor relationship and its effect on glucose homeostasis.
That's a title.
Yes, and some has also been from an article entitled
Oh no.
Aromatase, Adiposity, Aging and Disease, the Hypogonadal Metabolic Atherogenic Disease and Aging Connection. I just wanted to cite where some of the
Definitely,
material comes from.
as we always should cite.
Absolutely.
Yes, so I think before we go to our next subject,
Yes.
which is a completely different side, we're going to go
Right.
our first music break, just to give us some time, take a deep breath. There we go. So we will be back after the break.
Oh, I feel better, more relaxed with the breathing.
Exactly, we got this.
It works.
So you're listening to the Campus Health Show on rightradio.ca with Dr. D&D and me, Eldon Atkin. We'll be back after this break with all things obesity and weight loss.
See you in a moment.
Hello and welcome back to the Campus Health Show on rightradio.ca with your hosts, I guess host and co-host, Dr. Nadine Plummer, also known as Dr. D, ND, and me, Eldon Atkin. So we just listened to the song, which all kind of coincides with being more positive in life.
Yeah.
But now we're back to our questions about obesity and weight loss. So my first question is psychology at all involved when it comes to weight loss or weight gain or any of that?
It is. I just wanted to make a comment about the songs.
Okay, the
so
songs,
we
definitely.
talked last show more about stress and having high cortisol levels and the way that cortisol is associated with obesity and the relationship between stress and obesity.
Okay.
So I picked the songs today, nearly all of them.
Well, you do pick all the
Because,
songs,
well, I did pick all of the songs today, but most of them are different elements that you can use for stress relief.
Okay.
Because one of the greatest, or not the greatest, but a key cause, or one of the causes of obesity, as we said last week, is stress and having high cortisol levels. So some of these songs are like having high hopes, being optimistic, breathing, feeling happier. And please stay tuned next week. I'm telling you in advance, next week's show, which is the last show for the season, right?
I believe that'll be our last one for the season.
Last show for the season. Next week, we're going to be talking about happiness.
I can't wait.
Happiness.
Yeah.
Very cool subject. So we started this show off with the song Happier. Anyway, just a little cut to.
Awesome.
So some little stress reduction tools, even in the songs.
There you go.
We supply it.
Of course we do.
So, okay, psychology.
Yes.
Yes. There's, psychology is involved. And as a matter of fact, sometimes the placebo effect is involved. Like, do you feel that the meal plan that you're on is is going to help you lose weight? Do you feel like the exercise program that you're doing is actually going to be effective?
Okay.
Or you could have a nocebo effect. Nocebo effect, have you heard of that?
No, I've heard of placebo, never nocebo.
Yeah. No, as in no.
No.
It's not going to work.
That's you want to make sure that
Yeah.
you like hopefully believe in what you're doing.
Right, so
Yeah.
that's what the nocebo effect is.
Definitely.
Nocebo effect is feeling like, no, this isn't going to work. You're still doing whatever it is, so you're using the, let's say, the control or whatever factor has been introduced, like you're on the meal plan, you're exercising, etc. But in your mind, you think, I'm wasting my time. This is not going to work. That's the nocebo effect. So I read about a study that possibly included the placebo effect.
Okay.
And it was conducted by a Harvard psychologist. Her name was Ellen Langer, and she wanted to look at the effect of perception and the effect of belief on our actual physical bodies. Like if we actually believed and perceived something to be true, would it have a physical effect in our bodies? And we know, based on the discussions that we've had about stress
definitely.
and the sympathetic nervous system response, that yes, when you believe or think something to be true,
It will be, for the most part.
you could have a panic attack, you could have a stress response, you could have accelerated heart rate,
Exactly.
shortness of breath, etc. And that's all about your thoughts and your beliefs.
Yeah.
So she wanted to actually carry out a study. So she decided to use hotel maids
Okay.
as
What
the
a
subject in
subject
the
to
study.
use.
It's interesting because they actually do, the reason why she picked hotel maids is because they do a lot of physical work. But she found that not a lot of the hotel maids actually perceive themselves to be that physically active. 67% reported that they didn't exercise, and more than 1/3 of that 67% reported that they didn't exercise at all.
Wow.
Even though they're walking, etc., and doing
Yeah, they're doing a
exercise in
ton
their
of
job.
work, yeah.
So what she noticed was the women in the study actually exceeded the U.S. Surgeon General's recommendation for daily exercise.
Wow.
So they were even exceeding the
Yeah,
recommendation
definitely.
for daily exercise just in their job, but their bodies didn't seem to register or respond to the exercise. They measured their body fat, their waist to hip ratio, their blood pressure, their weight, their BMI, just as we were talking about, and they all matched the perceived amount of exercise and not the actual amount of exercise. So even though they were exercising more than the U.S. Surgeon General's recommendation, their bodies showed like their BMI, etc., was that of someone who didn't exercise.
Crazy to believe. Like, that is insane.
So she decided to break them up into two groups. One group would carry on as they had, and with the other group, she told them about each activity that they did, all the calories that they burned for each activity, and she explained to them that actually they were meeting the Surgeon General's definition of an active lifestyle.
Wow.
As I said, the other group, she didn't tell them anything. They continued doing their job just as they had before. Both groups continued just as they had before. So it's not like the group with the information changed what they were doing. They came back a month later to take some measurements, and they noticed that there was a difference now between the two groups, even though they were doing the exact same thing they had done before.
Exactly.
So in the group that was informed, and they now believed that they were exercising, their body had responded like people who were exercising. So there was a decrease in systolic blood pressure. There was a decrease in weight. There was a decrease in the waist to hip ratio, 10% drop in blood pressure.
Wow.
Yeah, and there had been no change in their routine. Really, the only change was it was a change in their beliefs.
So that's what, when you look at that, like, a lot of things are belief based. Like, as long as you think you can do it and you think it's doing something for you, then it will.
One man thinks he can, one man thinks he can't. They're both right.
Exactly. Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, I don't think that's not mine originally.
Okay.
But the interesting thing with that group was they believed they were exercising and their body responded like they were.
Yeah.
And yes, I think our beliefs can affect our body. We see it in stress response, as I said, for sure. And we also definitely see it in the placebo effect, which may have been what occurred in this study with the maids. But in terms of weight loss, possibly it could also affect our behavior. You could have like the nocebo effect. Oh, what's the use? This isn't working, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you might not get the types of results. But that's an individual thing.
That's awesome.
But this study really was about beliefs, perception, and the response in the body.
That's good to hear. So basically, I always thought like placebo was a bad thing. But it's really good compared to nocebo effect. If you think your medicine's going to work, it's going to work. If you think it's not going to work, it's not going to work.
It's not 100%.
Yeah, but it's pretty
But it
close.
happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
like that. So last week we talked about diet and exercise.
Yes.
What are we into? Are we doing that at all?
So last week we talked about diet and exercise.
We talked about.
And yes, we're not going to talk that much or really dive into diet as much. So we won't be talking about it as much. But I wanted to talk about diets.
Okay.
And a couple of diets are very hot right now. I don't know if everybody's talking about these diets. It is the buzz, except for Eldon. So a lot of people are talking, but you will be.
I will be.
Right now.
I will. I kind of have to, yeah.
So a lot of people are talking about intermittent fasting, the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet. So I just wanted to select a few diets that people are curious about and discuss them.
Definitely. Okay, so before we started the show,
Yeah.
I had no idea what intermittent fasting was until I asked you.
Yeah.
Now, like, what exactly is it?
So intermittent fasting is a way of eating. In one option, you might skip the traditional time for eating.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that you're skipping the meal, but you're not eating at that time. So maybe you're not eating breakfast at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., which is traditional time for eating breakfast. You're waiting a little longer till 10. But there are a few different ways of doing it. So it's intermittent fasting actually is not a term that refers to one specific way.
Okay.
It's a way of eating that kind of moves in between a cycle of fasting and a cycle of non-fasting.
Okay.
The most common way is to fast for a certain number of hours.
Okay.
And then to fast for a certain number of hours, like commonly, let's say 16
So
hours.
It's like a 2-to-1 ratio usually?
And then, no, actually, it's in this case, eating during the 8 hours left, yes, but sometimes people do like 14 to 10 instead.
Okay.
But they have found very good results with 16 hours of intermittent fasting, 8 hours of eating. The fasting time usually includes the time that you're sleeping.
Okay.
So you would set the time that you're going to start eating in the day and the time that you want to stop eating at night. So you could do 16 to 8 fast. If you start at 8 a.m., then you'd finish at 4 p.m. And after that, basically, shop's closed and you don't eat again until the following morning.
And 16 hours seems like a lot, but it's realistically like you sleep.
If you sleep 8 hours, that's 8 hours. And that 8 hours is divided up between, a lot of it, if you did 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., would be the late afternoon and evening.
So
but some of it's in the morning, depending on when you wake up.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. There's also a 5 to 2 fast where you eat normally for 5 days, and then during the 2 other days you reduce your calories, so there's calorie restriction down to about 600 calories.
Okay.
But a lot of research has actually been done on rats. And
poor rats.
I know there are always rats in this
It's
study.
always rats.
Where the results are weight loss, blood pressure reduction, blood sugar level improvement, and studies have also been done actually on humans.
Good job, rats.
Showing
Good
that
job.
it is effective. Studies are also showing that it may be effective for diabetes prevention.
Okay.
Now, there are a few resources out there. Because intermittent fasting is such a hot topic, I thought I'd name 1 or 2 resources that you could look into.
Definitely.
One was a 2012 BBC documentary that kind of, I think, kicked off the whole thing, called Eat Fast, Live Longer. And more recently, there was a book written called The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. I think that was written in 2016.
Sure.
And so I was doing some research on intermittent fasting. I found an article on Harvard Health, and it explained a little bit about the science behind intermittent fasting.
Okay.
The idea is to allow insulin levels to go down far enough and low enough that we burn off fat. In the human studies, they compared, there was one study where they compared eating every other day. So you fasted one day, ate one day, fasted one day, ate one day, to eating less every day. They found that both worked equally well for weight loss, but the people who fasted every other day found the fasting day quite hard.
Yeah, I would say so.
Some studies show that the right timing will render better health benefits. In one study with pre-diabetic obese men, one group ate between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m.
Okay.
And the other had an 8-hour eating period, which was they started at 7 a.m. in the morning and they finished at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and then that was the beginning of their fast. They didn't eat again until the following morning. Neither group gained or lost, but the 8-hour group, that's the 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. group, had lower insulin levels, had improved insulin sensitivity, had much lower blood pressure. And this is interesting because you were saying, well, you must get really hungry.
Exactly.
But that group that had a shorter eating period, the 8-hour eating period, and they stopped at 3, like they didn't start eating at 3. The cutoff was 3 o'clock.
Right at 3 o'clock,
They also found that their appetite had actually gone down. Their appetite had decreased. So an associate professor at Harvard Med School named Dr. Deborah Wexler said there's evidence suggesting that following the circadian rhythm fasting approach, and we had talked about circadian rhythms a few shows ago.
We have,
Which is 8 hours to 10-hour period of daytime eating. So circadian rhythm is like following the rhythm of your body with the sleep and eat, sleep and wake cycle.
Sleep and eat. That's all I do.
She said that following the circadian rhythm fasting approach was effective. The article basically said that the circadian rhythm fasting combined with a healthy diet and healthy lifestyle can render particularly good results for weight loss, especially if someone is at risk for diabetes. But if you have a history, basically the intermittent fasting is not for everyone. If you have a history of eating disorders, if you are pregnant or if you are breastfeeding, then it's not really recommended.
It's not for the babies. Not for the babies.
Not for the moms.
Or the babies.
Recent moms who are breastfeeding.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's...
The in utero babies. I see where you're going there.
Yeah, I got you. Don't you worry. And now, this is, I think it looks like a list almost, so I'm excited. During the 8 hours, what should you do while you're eating?
So I found this really interesting because some people would think, oh, wow, I have 8 hours to totally just
pig out.
And then
tons.
that's it. Shop closes at 3. So there are some important recommendations for what to do during the 8 hours. This is also part of the reason why I want to look at the Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
Because it is a diet that you could consider using during your 8 hours. So, but I'm going to list 4 major things to follow according to the Harvard Health article. It's kind of hard to say. Harvard Health.
It's like campus health show.
Campus Health show.
I do it every time except for, I do it so well. Thank you.
You did okay today.
Thank you.
Okay, so the 4 major things to follow. Number 1, avoid sugar and refined grains.
Boom.
Instead, choose to eat fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, whole grains, lean protein, healthy fats. And you could choose something that's like the Mediterranean diet during that 8-hour time. So we'll talk about the Mediterranean diet after this, I think. Number 2, no snacking. Let your body, so this allows your body to actually burn the fat between meals and continue to be active through the day. Number 3, go simple. Limit the hours when you eat, and the earlier is the better. So something like 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Or you could do something like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. But generally, it would mean that you finish by 6. Don't go into the evening. Don't go before bed. Rule number 4 is very important. And rule number 3 is kind of the segue to rule number 4, which is no snacking or eating at night. No nighttime eating.
I get that. I like to have a nice little granola bar before bed.
Yeah, if you were doing the intermittent fasting, that wouldn't
Yeah.
be on it unless your hours were like
Yeah.
it ended at midnight, but that's not really
No,
recommended.
my hours start 1 a.m. to 7 a.m.
You flipped it.
Yeah. I'll be nocturnal. It'll be fine. Yeah. It'll be healthy. Yeah.
You could be a participant in a study
I
on
could.
nocturnal intermittent fasting.
I can't stay up past like 2.
Having said that, I have not read that study. So
Okay.
these are the 4 recommendations by Harvard Health.
Awesome. So
Yes.
before we go to our last couple questions, let's cut to our last music break of the day.
Okay.
We're gonna hear another song that hopefully pumps you up because we're almost done here. This is what happens. We're having a good time. We'll be back after this last song, and then we're go through our last little dash.
But we'll be talking about the DASH
Yes, we
diet.
will. So you're watching the Campus Health Show on riotradio.ca with Dr. D and me, Eldon Atkin. We'll be back after the break. Stay tuned. Thank you for being here. Hello and welcome back to the Campus Health Show, only on riotradio.ca with Dr. D and me, Eldon Atkin. Now,
Yes.
we're on to our last leg of the show.
Here we go.
Here we go. Speed round. So, we talked about other
Yes.
dieting.
Yes.
We talked about other dieting. We said Mediterranean and DASH. What are they?
So I want to tell you about the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, and then I want to end off with top 10 tips.
Sounds good.
Top 10 tips. Okay, Mediterranean diet. So research has shown that traditional Mediterranean diet does several things that are amazing for our health. It
Okay.
reduces the risk of heart disease. It's been associated with lower levels of oxidized low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, which is known as the bad cholesterol, which is more likely to build up deposits in your arteries. So with less LDL, then less likelihood of it building up in your arteries. In a meta-analysis of more than 1.5 million healthy adults, it showed that following Mediterranean diet was associated with a reduced risk of cardiovascular disease and overall mortality, and
Okay.
that was in the BMJ, the British Medical Journal, in September 2008. But it's also been associated with a reduced risk of several conditions or diseases such as cancer,
Okay.
Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's. Women who eat a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, because olive oil is a key factor in the Mediterranean diet,
Definitely.
and mixed nuts have a reduced risk of breast cancer. So now that I've told you all the good things about the Mediterranean diet, you're probably wondering what it is.
Yes.
Now I'm going to tell you what it is. So it's primarily plant-based, so eating mostly plant-based foods such as fruits and vegetables. And Eldon and I brought some fruits and vegetables for us. I'm not sure if we'll have time to eat them on
darn.
air, but we can eat them after.
Sure.
Vegetables are a foundational food for all meals in the Mediterranean diet. You also want to include whole grains, legumes, nuts. Start the day off with fiber-rich foods like fruit and whole grains, combined with a high-quality protein like eggs or dairy products that'll help you feel full for longer. Eating fish and poultry in the Mediterranean diet, you eat fish or poultry at least 2 times per week, and fish and shellfish such as tuna, herring, salmon, sardines, shrimp. They're great because they're high in omega-3 fatty acids, which has been shown to be beneficial for the heart and brain. Instead of butter, you could replace it with healthy fats such as extra virgin olive oil, canola oil. Include fats like sunflower seeds, olives, nuts. Using herbs and spices instead of salt to flavor your food. Red meat, limit it to no more than a few times a month, and you can watch the portion size of the meat when you have it. For example, small strips of sirloin could be added to a vegetable saute, or a pasta dish could be garnished with diced prosciutto, and that offers a lot of flavor without oversized portions of meat. Red wine is in the Mediterranean diet. It's optional,
Here we
but
go.
water and wine are the typical beverages of the Mediterranean diet. Water is consumed throughout the day, and in terms of wine, for women it would be 1 5-ounce glass of wine per day, and for men it would be 2 per day.
1 in the morning, 1 at
Of course, get lots of exercise, enjoy your meals with your friends and family.
Awesome. Now the DASH diet.
DASH diet. I just want to mention the DASH diet because it's so interesting. This is a diet that was specifically put together to stop hypertension. So DASH stands for Dietary Approach to Stopping Hypertension. Some of this information is from the Canadian Heart and Stroke Foundation. Now, the DASH diet is based on 2 studies that looked at how to reduce blood pressure through diet. And in the DASH study, people were given 1 of 3 eating plans. In one, they ate the standard North American diet. In another one, they added extra vegetables and fruit to that diet. And in the third one, which is the DASH diet, it was rich in vegetables, fruit, low-fat dairy foods, and it also was lower in saturated fat, total fat, and cholesterol results. The results were the diet that was higher in vegetables and fruits and the DASH diet both reduced blood pressure, but the DASH diet had a greater effect on blood pressure. Remember, DASH is about stopping hypertension. It lowered levels within 2 weeks of starting the DASH diet. And not only was blood pressure reduced, total cholesterol was reduced, the LDL bad cholesterol was lower as well. So what is the DASH diet? Alden, I want to tell you what it is.
Yes, please.
I'm going to tell you.
Yep.
So you'd eat moderate portions of fat-free or low-fat dairy products, moderate portions of whole grains, but you want to eat lots of non-starchy vegetables and fruit. Moderate portions of lean meat, poultry, beans, soy foods, eggs, egg substitutes, fish, nuts, and seeds, healthy fats such as olive and canola and avocado. And in the DASH diet, you would definitely limit foods made with refined grains like white bread, pastries, and sweets. So I have some top 10 tips.
We can fire through these.
Any other tips? So that's the intermittent fasting, Mediterranean diet, DASH diet, but these are general tips that you can use even if you're not using those diets. My top 10 tips for weight loss. And some of these are from Healthline. They're all evidence-based. There's studies behind them, but we don't have time to talk about those studies. Here we go. Number 1. Water, half an hour before meals. There was a study where half a liter was consumed a half an hour before meals, effective for weight loss. Number 2, protein for breakfast, such as eggs. Number 3, cut back on sugar. We talked about sugar and addictive effects of sugar a few weeks ago. I think we still have a slide on that. Number 4, cut back on refined carbs, meaning no white bread or pasta, because it spikes the blood sugar, leading to cravings, etc. 5, low-carb diet. 6, keep a food diary. This is so wild because they found that actually documenting what you ate led to weight loss. 7, up your fruits and vegetables. 8, chew more slowly, just as we did when we were eating the muffin during mindful eating. 9, up your protein. 10, avoid nearly anything in a crinkly bag. Okay, that's not the actual wording, but avoid processed foods. Anything in a crinkly bag, a box. Yes.
Definitely.
Avoid processed foods. 1 extra. Okay, this would be 11, but this is just extra. Don't drink your calories. So avoid sugary drinks, avoid pop, cut down on alcohol, avoid juice. Instead, eat the whole fruit.
Cut down alcohol.
Yes. There's a lot of calories in alcohol. Yeah.
I guess.
Alden, I want to tell you one more thing.
Okay, how can you help me?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
How can an ND help? So your naturopathic doctor can help because your naturopathic doctor can help you come up with a meal plan, provide some recipes, you go over ingredients. Further, when you're embarking on a new lifestyle change, often counseling can make a big difference. It allows you to get down to the root of what stopped you from moving forward and progressing in the past, helping you to make a habit change. Of course, acupuncture for weight loss, auricular acupuncture, and stress reduction. A naturopathic doctor can help with stress reduction tools and techniques. Also, you can watch the stress show. And so your ND could definitely help you with when you're embarking on a weight loss program.
Well, thank you very much for being here with me today. And we will be here next week. I love being here. So you were watching the Campus Health Show on riotradio.ca. We'll be back next week with our happy episode where we're going to talk
about happiness next week.
So this was Eldon Atkin with Dr. D, ND, and I guess me. That's like the cool title, but whatever. I messed that up. Anyway, so we'll be back next week. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have an awesome week, and we will see you later.
See you next week.